put on that. And we honorary women,
you know,
we're indoors.
When women sort of go around, it'll be like, and they go like that, you know what I mean? And they put their kanga on.
But it's interesting, this whole business of the design, because there were women in the factory in Dar who were, first of all, advising the factory on what design and what slogan and what colourway was going to be successful, because these are very important from a commercial point of view. But it also indicates what the social, religious, sexual, political
connotations,
and what's the mood of the day in a sense. So those designs are crucial, and in Dar there were women and men who would hand paint a kind of quarter section of the central design on the kanga. It would then go onto a computer before being put onto a roller for printing. So it's quite an interesting process. When I went further south to South Africa, this other tradition which we feature in the exhibition called shweshwe, have a smell of that.
Just reminds me, just like, you know, it's back in an African village.
It's a particular sort of starch there that they call sort of turkey oil.
That's right, yeah.
And when it hasn't been washed, it has this. It's one of the ways that you can tell proper shweshwe rather than the imitations. It has that wonderful texture and it has that smell.
And the waxy feeling to it, isn't it?
And we were asking about how the name kanga came about. The name shweshwe relates to King Mshweshwe from Lesotho, one of the great African kings from the 19th century, who resisted the British, the Zulus, the Boers alike.
So the resistance of the...
But that's where he gets his name.
Yes.
From King Mshweshwe.
Yeah.
And the story is that in about 1833, people came with something called blauwdruk, or blue cloth, which the Swiss and German settlers of the Cape had worn up till then. In other words, it was a white people's cloth. Mshweshwe said, I'm going to change all that. We'll order this for my folks, and we're going to wear it, and it's going to have my name. And nowadays, shweshwe is worn by black, white populations throughout Southern Africa. So it's a great kind of textile story, you know. And I love this design. When I went to Joburg, I was just beginning to research shweshwe, and there was a power cut in downtown Joburg in the textile, in that area where the textile store is. One of those shops that goes right back, and it's pitch black at the back. And I said, can you give me a torch, because I want to find a particular type of shweshwe, the three cats design, because they'd only just started printing it in King Williamstown in South Africa then. So the bloke thought I was mad. I scrambled over these great piles of textiles. And they came out with a small piece like this. And he said, what do you want that for? You can't make anything out of it. I said, no, this is what I want. The three cats design. Because it's interesting, see these cats, I found in sort of 1920s, probably from Manchester, a little bit like an artist called Louis Wayne, but now produced by Dagama in South Africa. And those things are very interesting as well. Nowadays they have a logo of three leopards, which makes it a bit more African, rather than these nice little kitty cats that sit by the fire.
No, that's true.
But I was very keen to find those out, and all these motifs have names, have African names, like the eye of the cow or something like that. You know. All of them will have names, and that research is just beginning, and it's very exciting. And there's a lovely blanket down in the exhibition, which and I think this photograph of the three Sotho guys. This is another textile which came originally from Europe. That that he, Mshweshwe, is credited with having adopted for his people, the Sotho people, South Sotho people, in the mountain kingdom of Lesotho, which remained independent despite all the political and military goings on around it. And a little bit later, because before that, remember, it's pretty pretty cold up there. Another kind of stereotype of Africa is it's hot all over the place.
Yeah, I know.
It's freezing cold. And up high there on the high veld in the mountains, his people would, before these blankets, wear a kind of skin cape.
Yeah.
And I'm imagining this now, but I know that a Scottish trader came maybe about 30 years after the Shrewsbury with some of these blankets, and King Moshoeshoe said, yeah, we'll take these too.
Yes.
And the trader said, I'm sorry about these faults. You see those lines running down them?
Yes, yeah.
There were fault lines in the jacquard weaving process. And I'm imagining Moshoeshoe saying, or the trader saying, oh, don't worry, if you order 10,000 of these, we can get rid of those lines. And Moshoeshoe is saying, I like the lines, we'll keep them. We'll make them ours in particular. So when you see a Sutu guy or a woman wearing these, the lines are always vertical. You'll never see somebody wearing them kind of horizontal. I've really enjoyed researching all sorts of things to do with Africa, but textiles in particular grabbed me. So there's such a great way of kind of talking about African history, talking about ways of communicating, all the sorts of different materials that are used in producing things. And there's always a Juikiti, you go back to that, you know nothing. So when they had the Angola exhibition here at the Powell-Cotton Museum, I did a bit of field research in a bar at London Bridge. And Kate, who was organising it, invited me along, and there was a woman wearing samakaka, which is another tradition.
Was it worn as in the traditional African style, or was it like worn in was it made into a dress?
More like a kind of cape. That was the way she was wearing it, not like a kanga.
Right.
And I think it's a sort of worn as a single garment.
Sure.
But by the Herero people from Angola, although the Herero people all over the place, Namibia, Botswana, and so on. But this one is the design that Herero people, or her people in Angola would wear, or samakaka. Maria Duluth. So thanks to the Powell-Cotton Museum, I said to Maria, can I have a picture? She said, yes, of course. She brought me back one. She's in the exhibition downstairs.
Oh, brilliant.
But we ought to get one of these for the handling collection because of the big Angola connection between Powell-Cotton, the major, and
Hannah,
the two daughters. Did a lot of research in Angola. But this is just classic, you know. I'd never seen one of these before. I didn't have to go to Angola to find it.
I believe, well, obviously, you can obviously propound further on this, is that the exhibition has been fantastically received by most of the audience that come to the Powell-Cotton Museum, and it's actually raised a lot of curiosity and a greater understanding of what African culture is all about. And it's not just about, people carrying, clay pots on their heads and so on and so forth. That there is fashion to it, and there is a trend with regards to, making a statement in whatever one does. And where it requires one person to be vociferous, in other words, being able to use their voice, there is a way of actually making themselves heard through a certain statement. And furthermore, that African culture is so much more deeper than one would like to think.
Absolutely, I think that's right. There's a kind of, well, there are many stereotypes about Africa. Heaven knows, you see enough of them on the TV.
Yes.
And this is one way of kind of breaking it down.
You know what? One very interesting thing about this is that the exhibition has actually brought a lot of inspiration to what we are able to offer as a museum. One, we have created a workshop around kanga, and we cut tiny little handkerchief size cloth. And it was so popular. We had a lot of kids and parents found the whole exercise of actually taking part in that workshop. One of the most inspiring things that they did, interactive, and they each had to create their own little kanga to take home with. And so I suppose in this part of East Kent, if you go around, you might find that quite a few of the houses stock their own sort of customized kanga, which will be absolutely fantastic as a result of you introducing us and bringing this learning this to us, you know, which is absolutely, you know,
that's
fantastic.
So great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So these little modern cloths printed in India are actually a jumping off point to start thinking about those wonderful historical aspects, those global aspects of trade, which Africa has been absolutely central to long before any Europeans arrived on the scene. It's humbling and it's important.
Listen, you and I talking about kanga, we could go on forever.
All night.
And I think, absolutely. You know, I will start investing in a Zimmer frame very soon about kanga subjects. Thank you very much.
Okay,
it's such an honor.